Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today Television. I'm Sakshi Batra and this is BTS, that's Behind the Scenes, a show where we share a sneak peek into the latest edition of the Business Today magazine with all of you, our viewers. Joining in on this special edition with me are my colleagues Krishna Gopalan, the executive editor of Business Today Television, Business Today magazine, and also with us is Surabhi, who covers the economy and is the economy editor of the Business Today magazine. Welcome to both of you and thank you so much for taking the time out for this very special edition. And now to showcase a quick glimpse to all our viewers of what this edition really looks like. That is the new cover. You have the cement czars, Kumar Mangalam Birla and also Gautam Adani right there on the cover. And the cover story has been done by Krishna right here. So let's kickstart this discussion, Krishna, with you to help us understand how two of the country's biggest business groups are now going to be chasing opportunities in the cement industry. They're racing for the pole position right now. So a lot of action has already started to take place. There is a lot of acquisition that's happening. There's a lot of capacity building that's already taking place. First, help us understand, the kind of two business groups coming together. How is that likely to change the face of the Indian cement sector in India going forward?
This really comes down to one particular incident that took place in mid-2022, and that was the buyout of Ambuja and the buyout of ACC. That both were gobbled up by Gautam Adani, and that really announces foray into cement. I'm just going to take a step back. The plain commodity was not intentional, it was absolutely strategic for Gautam Adani. There are a couple of points one needs to make a note of here. One, he owns several ports in India, so using the sea route to transport cement became a hugely interesting opportunity. As all of us know, he has a significant presence in thermal power, and that throws up fly ash, a critical commodity for cement. So he was able to control costs as well. And of course, not to forget the fact that he acquires coals, courtesy of coal mines that he owns in Australia. So combination of all these three gave him a strategic advantage of cost as well as transportation. So it fitted in well into his existing portfolio. That's speaking of Gautam Adani. Just going to Ultratech, a huge brand name. They've been in the business for 40 years. Understand the business extremely well. And in cement, it all really comes to the brand name because the deciding person is the contractor or the builder. So the moment the brand is etched in the mind of this gentleman, the brand name actually gets that much stronger. So if you look at that strategies, it's remarkably different for the two people, but the stakes are that large because we're speaking of a market which is about 650 million tons and tremendous opportunity for consolidation. So that's pretty much where the story started off.
Right. So, Krishna, this is definitely very, very interesting and something that, everyone has their eyes on to see how this goes forward from here. But I think more interesting will be to really find out what next, how many players is who going to be really taking in, especially when it comes to the South Indian market. That's going to be very interesting to watch out for. Do tell our viewers, how have you assessed the situation? How is the South Indian story when it comes to the cement industry different? And why is it so fragmented and what goes next? And is it going to be favoring one player over the other?
Sakshi, I'm just going to take a global perspective here. In most developed or even developing markets, we do not have a case of more than three players. So India is a bit of an exception in that sense. The South is remarkably different. The moment I tell you that we have close to 45 players in the South, you understand the magnitude of the opportunity. Now, to run a cement plant in any part of the country, the South being no exception, you will need to have a critical capacity of at least 3 million tons per annum. Now, here we are speaking of about 190 million tons spread across 50 players, and most of them operating at suboptimal capacity. Somebody could have a plant of about 1 million tons per annum, for example. Now, the logic is as follows. Relatively easy access to limestone limits the entry barrier for most players in the South. So the moment they get limestone, they believe it's game on and get into the business, little realizing that there are other challenges that come with it. Equally, supply outstrips demand by a factor of 2x in the South, again leading to a situation of underutilization of capacity. To draw a parallel, the average utilization levels in the South are about 60%, nationally we're about 75%. So that's how large the disparity is. The North, of course, is the largest at about 83%. So now, given where the South is, given the ambitions of Ultratech and Ambuja, it becomes mighty interesting. Just to elaborate on this particular point, of the last 6 to 7 acquisitions that have taken place since November, December last year, 5 have taken place in the South. Ultratech's decision to buyout the promoters of India Cements, the dealers announced just a couple of days ago, is a case in point. Adani bought over Penna. They also bought a grinding unit that belongs to My Home Industries down in Tuticorin in Tamil Nadu. The Birlas again bought over Kesuram. As we just look at the landscape, you can think straight away, as the story has highlighted, of at least a dozen players with a significant presence in the south who look pretty vulnerable. So I'd put my money on the fact that if you have no significant player of consequence in the south, they're just setting it up for further consolidation, which is why all M&A activity is moving towards South India.
Okay, so it's going to be in a very, very interesting battle for the pole position that we're going to be seeing going forward. And it seems like the deal street is just going to be keeping on buzzing with both the players looking at more and more opportunities. I think just like how you also reiterated that they are already looking to spend over 1 lakh crore rupees within themselves, to expand capacities going forward, and which is why the cement sector has a lot of interest even within the stock market investors at this point in time. The sector has only been going up for the last 1 month, 1.5 months or so. All of these stocks have been buzzing very, very sharply. Thank you so much, Krishna, for that update. Let's now go across to Surabhi to really understand the fine print of the union budget. I do know that all of us have actually seen a lot of headlines, news stories come out of the budget, but Surabhi has been covering budgets from a far longer time than you and I have been, and so it's very important for us to understand as to how she has picked out some of the key highlights or takeaways that you probably have missed in the union budget that would have a longer shelf life from here on as well. Surabhi, take it away. What is it that that caught your attention when it comes to the union budget fine print?
Thank you, Sakshi, for having me on the show. So yes, it's been quite some time, I think, since the budget was passed in July 23, and yes, we decided to take a step back in the magazine to see what are the main elements in the budget. While the FM had underlined several aspects and priority areas, the 2 or 3 things which struck out for us were the commitment to fiscal consolidation and the decision to bring the fiscal deficit down to 4.9% of the GDP, which has been big thing for the government, given how rating agencies have been closely watching India's fiscal consolidation roadmap. So that's a really big thing. The other important thing, of course, is the focus on formal job creation in this budget. In the past, we've seen the government talk about entrepreneurship and gig economy, but this is perhaps one of the few times when the government has focused on formal job creation, and this is where the 3 employee-linked incentive schemes come in, where the government is actually going to give a subsidy to the employee as well as the employer for enrollment in the EPFO and continuing to work for at least a 12-month period. So that's a really big thing. And when we look at formal employment, what it also means is that once the employee is enrolled in the EPFO, it means that that employee also has a certain degree of social security, which is very, very important in a country like India, where social security is largely limited to few. And the third theme, of course, is that of taxation. And while we've all poured through all the tax changes, the important things that are going to really have an impact is, of course, the long-term capital gains tax regime and the lowering of the rate to 12.5% for property and removal of indexation. We need to really watch how this plays out in the property market and what happens to taxpayers in this new change scenario. And then, of course, the budget has also spoken about GST 2.0, where the idea would be to rationalize the rates and perhaps move to a 3-rate structure, which has been the ask for a long time by both consumers and industry, as well as inclusion of more sectors into GST. These would include fuel, real estate, electricity. So that's another really important thing that the budget has spoken about.
Okay. So, Surabhi, of course, this time we are seeing the budget come in the month of July. Now, what I want to understand is, will it really have an impact on the implementation of the schemes? Because there'll be just less time now, and the next budget will be before we bat an eyelid, in the next 6 months.
Yes, of course. So we must all remember that this budget has come in the almost the middle of the financial year, and it's August by the time the budget is actually passed, and the allocation and actual expenditure of funds will start over the next couple of weeks. And like one of the senior government officials who are involved in the budget making were pointing out that from September the exercise for the next union budget will actually start. So having a budget in the middle of the year, of course, it's because of general elections, does have an impact on the implementation of schemes and the expenditure that actually takes place. Now remember, we have an all-time high capex allocation of 11.1 lakh crore, but we need to see how much of it can actually get spent this fiscal, because we've had 4 months of the fiscal pass through due to the general elections and model code of conduct. Even last year, if we in 23-24, if we look at the provisional accounts, we see that while the capex allocation was 10 lakh crore, the actual expenditure was 9.48 lakh crore. So there's always that kind of a shortfall. So this will of course have an impact, although it could help the government further improve its fiscal deficit. So that could be a silver lining. And then we also need to see, how far reforms like the GST rate rationalization can happen, because a lot of it would also depend on, the GST council and how states decide to take this forward. So these are some of the things that we still need to watch out for.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Surbhi, for giving us all that update. And with that, viewers, we'll wrap it up on that and this special edition. Thank you so much, Krishna and Surbhi, once again for sharing such wonderful insights. And to all you viewers, the edition is on the stands. Please do go out there and grab your copies. This is one edition you don't want to miss. It has a whole lot of insight as to what is really going to be unfolding in the infra space, in the cement space, and of course, the takeaways from the budget, and much, much more beyond the key stories that we've discussed. Many thanks for being with us on this special edition. Do stay tuned as Business Today Television continues to bring you a lot of action on your screens even after this.